Good evening, everyone. It is Curtis W. Retired Midnight Blogger called, in this case, at 9:30 p.m. I apologize. Fate is having some construction at his place. So instead of talking about the interesting topic of ancient civilizations, you'll be getting my ramblings. And Matt Cheatwood brought up a great point. The theme of the talk I've I think I've streamlined it. Looking at the stuff that I have ready to talk about. And yes, thank you, Putin's cat. I do need an intro amongst other things. I'm going to be talking about how we've cornered people into such a place that instead of right wingers coming out and criticizing the elites, it's left wingers calling out their own party, their own people for their hypocrisy. And that is really the theme of the night and what I was trying to get across with Weinstein, who I will only bring up this one more time unless people just insist on it. Now, before I dive into the topic, I want to say hello to everyone in the chat, although I've kind of said hello anyway. And this is a ginormous chat. I got to tell you, I am impressed. Matt Cheatwood was the first person to come here. Thank you very much. You've been here for like a long time. But he says that we always have hope, and I am trying to believe that. Putin's cat makes the likely substantial claim that I might need more material, and I guess tonight y'all will have to be the judge of that. Lady V Elements, thank you very much for showing up. You are a pillar of the community, and eventually I'll come up with some other clever thing to call you, but for now, that's where I'm at. I think, even though there's been a lot of chat, I think for now it's just the 4 or 5 of us. So let's begin. One last thing before I do dive into the topic. It seems eerily similar to the Bronze Age collapse in the Middle East. The people in the chat were discussing what likely should have been the topic if I were more apprised of what's going on with everything, but essentially the difficulties in Russia, the difficulties in China, whether or not any of the industrial countries are doing well. And it's very possible that I don't know that anyone is. I'm trying to think of someone. Frankly, sometimes I try to think of where I might want to run away to, and I don't really come up with anything good. So I'm going to go ahead, dive into the topic, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes, not so much to bore you as to get through the first 8 minutes of YouTube so that I am less likely to be censored. No real voice, no real face. And I don't blame you at all on that, Putin's cat. I probably should be more anonymous myself, but here I am. So I talked last week about how I used to be a conservative. Oh, and hello, Sashi. Greetings to you, the man from the future. I talked about how I used to be a conservative, and then how I flirted with libertarianism, and then how I got pulled not really into the left, but I think into a more centrist position. But one of the phenomena that I'm seeing, and don't get me wrong, I'm not seeing it with respect to my conservative friends, I'm not seeing a great deal of conservative commentary or activity that's making me want to hop on board and reestablish myself as the Rush Limbaugh listening person that I used to be. Having said that, there's a lot of crappy things going on the left. And it, frankly, and again, may have friends show up who will possibly be offended at what I'm about to say, but I find myself baffled at what they're believing. And of course, the right is just as bad, but I don't feel a need to demonstrate that because all you have to do is turn on the TV and it's right there. You know, there's no need for a tired blogger to try to expose the right. It's 2/3 of what the industry does anymore. And hello, Dad Man Walking, and thank you very much. I thank you for showing up. You are a gentleman and a scholar. And I think that is it on the chat. So one of the phenomena I've been seeing, the example I'm going to give is Russell Brand, and I have one of his videos up. If we get to it, there's actually quite a lot of other stuff before it, but if we get to it, I'll play the Russell Brand video. But Russell Brand is a liberal, but he calls out the people on his side because, let's face it, I think we all want honesty and we all want integrity in the people who are leading us. We're tired of lies. We're tired of gaslighting. And I guess that's the theme of this episode, is to demonstrate that there are liberals who are opening their eyes to that. And that doesn't mean that they have to be right wing or that we have to be right wing or anything like that. But it gives me hope that there are people who have the intellectual honesty to open their eyes and say that there are four lights. Sashi says politicians are generally crap. Doesn't matter what side they're on. You are correct. And I will let that go because I don't know if it's really pertinent to what we're talking about. But it is great that everyone is having a good time. I hope. Don't let me stop you from having a good time. We're almost up to the 8-minute mark, and I'm going at the risk of irritating the crap out of Putin's cat. I'm going to do one last thing, just a couple of minutes with Weinstein, then I'll move on because I'm trying to get across what I just said. That basically, you have a liberal, you have one of the academia, you have one of the elites, well, second or third tier elites, who's admitting that this is a house of cards. and Matt Cheatwood makes a great point. I don't think I can stop you from having a good time. And that, that's what liberty is all about. So I think I have this organized slightly better than last time. And let's begin with, unless people demand it, the last thing that I do appertaining to Weinstein. I hope I've got this at a point where he actually makes his point. Am I sharing? Yes.
Blind us. Why are they so worried about what we see and say?
Yeah, let me flesh out the concept I started with, and then let me.
As long as the punchline is why they are doing this, I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem is who are they, and how specific can we be about why they're doing it? But if we put those nuances aside, and then I will return to the question of where there might be hope, given all of the reasons that you've just outlined for despair. I've come up with a concept called the time-traveling money printer. The time-traveling money printer is based on the idea that we all have.
And yes, I acknowledge that even here, he does kind of go round and round and round and round. But I think he comes to the point a little more quickly than he usually does.
Been through the thought exercise of what would you do if you had a time machine, right? Well, if you had a time machine that could go forward in time, you could go figure out what's going to happen, and you could come back to the present and place your bets in the market and make tons of money, right? If you had a time machine that went backwards, you could go back and you could buy Apple and Microsoft and Amazon, make tons of money. So we all get that a time machine is a moneymaker. But there are no time machines as far as we know. I'm concerned that some rent-seeking elites have.
And I'm going to skip ahead because the talk about the rent-seeking elites is frankly more round and round. The concept of the rent-seeking elites is you have a certain number of people on the inside, Nancy Pelosi, who they already know what's going on. They know the game that's being played. And it's not just that they know it, they rig it. And so therefore, we really don't have a true capitalism, because I think most of you understand that for capitalism to work, you have to have a well-informed public. And we're not well-informed. We're lied to. We're gaslighted. And that may not be the reason, but I think it is a big reason why we see our economic systems failing. He's talking about elites creating a delay between them getting actionable info and that info becoming common knowledge. And that's exactly right. And to a point, we have to be realistic and know that there's going to be a little bit of that gap. It probably can't be helped. What disturbs me isn't so much that they might know, say, a month ahead of time. What disturbs me is that they compound that by then lying to us, saying the opposite is happening, and then essentially they cash in, make tons of money. I'm not going to go into it here, but it has been demonstrated that the Fortune 500 corporations made the exact amount of money that was lost by the rest of the economy. So that, during COVID. So the economy really didn't falter that much, but we sure as hell did. The longer the delay, the more valuable the info can be. 100% capitalism means that one person could end up owning everything. So we have rules and antitrust laws. And yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I would put forth the question that probably the unspoken question that you're making. Why aren't they being enforced? Why aren't they being looked into? But let's see if I've got him to the answer yet.
Some phone calls and say, here's what's coming down the pike. Cruise ships are a bad bet. You should short, the cruise ship industry.
I won't go back and forth, but he's essentially talking about how just what we just said. During COVID, they knew what was happening. They knew what they were about to do. They invested thus wise, and we had no opportunity to do that. I didn't know to sell short on cruise ships. I would have if I'd had any money at the time and knew that it was happening. I did know at the time that a record number of Fortune 500 CEOs were retiring, and I wondered what that was all about. And then, oh, look, COVID happens. Interesting. At Putin's Cat, I'm not sure we agree on what capitalism is. I do know that government regulations always favor the large corporations. Yeah, that is the truth, for good or ill.
Airlines. I would go big on home deliveries of this, that, and the other. So you can just imagine it's as good as a time machine. If you privately hold the information about what history is about to do and the public is unaware of it, the opportunity to make money is limitless. So that's a why somebody would have engaged in blinding us, because the blinder we are, the more powerful their money printer is. And I believe that this happened. And actually, there's a tremendous amount of evidence. Much of it is laid out in Bobby Kennedy's book on Wuhan.
And I do understand that Bobby Kennedy is not popular with a lot of people. I had a liberal friend just mocking the heck out of him, and probably deservedly so, for the whole brainworm escapade. But Sashi is asking, why are they not enforced? Because it's rules for thee and not for me. 100%. Sashi, you get a prize. You get the prize of living in a dystopia for the rest of your life. Yay! Okay, let's go back to this and see what he has to say for the next couple of minutes, and then I'll move on to the next thing.
That there were incredibly prescient investments made by Bill Gates and others in companies that you would have no reason to think were about to have a spectacular rise, that just so happened to have the goods for producing mRNA vaccines that would just so happen to take over the world, this sort of thing. So anyway, I don't know exactly who. We know some of the players. Gates appears to be an important player who seems to know what's going to happen in the future before the rest of us do. And why is obvious, because for the same reason that people rob a bank, this is safer and much more lucrative to place bets in the world based on private information. It's a good gig. And so anyway, that's what I think is happening. We're being systematically blinded because there are some people who are sophisticated in their own diabolical way who think, well, why the hell would I share useful information about reality if I could use it to my own advantage instead? What do you think?
Okay, so while I know I did a terrible job of establishing what this was all about, what this is all about is you have a classical liberal, you have an intelligent professor. I didn't play some of his other stuff because I was trying to make a point and kind of failed to do so. But the guy is insanely brilliant. If you listen to any of his stuff about physics, his stuff about music, the guy's intelligence is off the charts. And he sees it. He sees what at least I think most of us see, that the elites are padding their pockets, they are lying to us, and it is all for their gain, and we are just basically slaves to them. The chat says antitrust laws are useless against BlackRock. BlackRock is a beast. They really are. They own huge amounts of every large corporation. Nearly every one of those corporations owned by BlackRock stock. One of the reasons why I love Russell Brand is he revealed this. Essentially, there's basically only 5 corporations that own, I want to say 80% of all the media, including local, in the United States. And guess who owns a minimum of 15% of each of those companies? That would be BlackRock. So if you were wondering about that video where all of these news people were in lockstep with each other, that is why, or at least that is a part of why, you only have a handful of people setting the agenda for all of the news, whether it's left or right wing. They just change the message a little bit to suit the audience they're trying to manipulate. Darth Plato, hello, and thank you for showing up. Capitalism is a system of voluntary relationships inside a legal framework to facilitate protection against force, fraud, theft, and contract violations. I believe that is at least a part of the of some accepted definitions. Capitalism is not economic anarchy, although more and more my heart goes out to the kind of anarchy that doesn't involve terrorism. The old guy, yeah, the cigarette smoking man on X-Files, the best ways to predict the future is to make it. And no, that's true, Putin's cat. He's not a physicist. I just love what he has to say about it. But that's neither here nor there, and not really pertinent to the topic, so maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. Matt Cheatwood, capitalism is at its foundation the idea that you own yourself, and therefore you own the results of your own labor. And I'm so tempted to go off on a segue, but I will stay focused. But I want to make at least a short segue. I have a lot of heroes, or at least a lot of people who have influenced me. And one of them is the monk Thomas Merton. And the last speech he gave before he died was about how man in the Western world is no longer free. He is no longer allowed to enjoy the fruits of his labor. He is alienated from his work, from his institutions. I'm paraphrasing a little, but it's almost a direct quote because it had such an impact on me. He would beautifully voice as a monk what I had been thinking for several years about what's going on in the world. BlackRock has more money than developed nations, 100%. I dabble in nuclear. That is fantastic. I used to read a little bit of physics. That was years and years ago. Particle physics is an illusion, useful but flawed. Weinstein talks quite a bit about how his belief, and again, he's not a physicist, so take it with a grain of salt, but he feels that the United States is too strongly influenced by string theory, and I would be interested in either of your views on that, Putin's Cat or Matt Cheatwood. So let me get back to the next point. Now, we had one intelligent liberal, one classical liberal, who realized that the elites that purportedly are on his side are very distinctly not on his side. I'm going to give a little bit of background on this one, not to bore you, but so that you have a little bit of an idea of the context. This is Dr. Epstein, not the Epstein from the island. Did I get, okay, I'm still here. I thought for a while that maybe I'd disappeared suddenly. But this Dr. Epstein studies search engines mainly, but also social media. And the crux of his studies is essentially very subtle ways of manipulating hundreds of millions of people. If you all want to go deeper into it, I'll be glad to do that. But right now, I'm going to be like the journalists and kind of just segue over all the hard facts. String theory is useless, an unfalsifiable concept. I need to put some more thought into that. One of the examples that he gives is that through his studies, he found that Google was sending reminders to, I want to say it was 2.5 times as many Democrats as Republicans, reminding them to vote. And it's a simple thing, it's a subtle thing. I may be unfair to my liberal friends, but I don't doubt that one or two of them probably thinks that's okay. In my humble opinion, it's BS. It's not that I love the Republican Party anymore, but I thought we were all high and mighty about how we don't want elections manipulated and we don't want them to be dishonest or anything. And yet here we are, one of the world's biggest companies, the world's biggest search engine, basically trying to decide who the American president will be. Now let's see what he has to say.
You could probably shed light on the psychology of how that could even be possible. But then, okay.
And one more thing, I talked with one of my liberal friends, and he's really not that liberal. He claims that he's not, but more and more I find him significantly further on the left than I am, for what that's worth. Is it possible that there are twice as many Democrats on social media as there are Republicans? And I don't know if we'll get into that, but he does deal with that. They did basically do some. I'm having a brain fart, but basically they controlled for those differences. So even factoring that into account, he assured the reporter that there's still 2.5 times as many. And he also points out, and I won't get into this, but he talked to Congress about it. And then later, one of the congressmen went to Google and wrote a letter to their executives, and then it stopped. So it's not only just that it's happening, but I suspect from this interview, they know it's happening and they kind of plan on it happening. I account for the fact that they're closet pubs. Well, maybe so. I think it's worthwhile to make clear distinction between liberals and progressive leftists, and that's true. I don't really know what my friend would call himself. I don't want to be unfair to him. But he is further along the left than I am, which does not mean that he's wrong or bad. It's not that disturbs me. What disturbs me is when he will believe all these things that are said, and then if you do a little bit of digging, they're lies. But then it's harder to do digging because Google, I find out in this interview, they manipulate the results. You find what they want you to find, not what's actually true. Where I live, everyone says that they are Democrat or lies and says that they are. See, I'm in Oklahoma where everyone lies and says that they're Republicans. Okay, I'll get back into this.
Forget about elections. I guess that principle would hold true to everything, that our very desires, which constitute so much of our identity, are now just fair game, totally vulnerable in a way they never have been before to one or two players.
Yeah, so that's another problem, is that these techniques that we've been discovering, naming, and quantifying, they're in the hands of a couple of tech lords, I guess you could say. Just a couple of people have pretty much total control over all this new technology. So that now we're talking about a very different world. This is not just I don't know, a Mussolini or a Stasi or something like that operating in one country. This,
and not to belabor the point, this is a liberal Democrat. This is not someone who votes for Trump or even likes Trump. And he's not calling Trump Mussolini. He's referring to people at Google. Where I live, everyone is a Democrat or left. Yeah, I think I already said that. And I'm in Oklahoma also. I'm openly libertarian. And you know what? I am frighteningly close to jumping ship. But I don't see that either party represents me at all.
this is a couple of tech execs who are not accountable to the public. We did not elect them. They're very secretive. And they have this kind of power over, at the moment, more than 5 billion people around the world. And they know they have this power. Okay, how do I know that? Well, in recent years, long after I started this research, by the way, in recent years, a bunch of whistleblowers have turned up from Facebook.
One more point before I let him go on. I haven't supported either party since '96. I know my flirtation with libertarianism. See, you must be much better informed or more intelligent than I. I came to it late in 2012. I came to it when Ron Paul was running, and I voted for him, and I said it and meant it on the last stream. He is the last politician, with the possible exception of Moira McCabe, who I voted for and actually was excited to vote for, even though he didn't win. But okay, but I've caused this because my liberal friend, I talked to him about this, and he had asked, well, is it possible that this is just simply economics? That's really all it is. These two people really couldn't care less about politics, couldn't care less about manipulating our hearts or actions or any of that. They're just trying to make money, and money for nothing and the chicks for free. Well, the reporter, I skipped ahead a little bit because he was Weinsteining the question. He was going on and on. So I skipped ahead to it. But the crux of the question was, is it possible that this is just simple economics?
And Google and the former Twitter, now X, and documents have turned up. Voorhees walked out of Google with more than 950 pages of documents and a video. That little 2-minute video is so eye-opening. It's a staff meeting, and obviously someone was recording this on a phone. And there is the CEO of YouTube, also one of Google's first employees. YouTube is owned by Google, and she is explaining to everyone, and there's a screen behind her, and she's pointing to the images. She's explaining to her staff how they're altering the recommender algorithm on YouTube that finds all these suggestions for you, and if you don't do anything, it'll just play the one at the top, the up next video.
Right.
And she's explaining how this is post 2016 debacle. She's explaining how they're altering the algorithm so that it's boosting certain content that they think is good, and it's suppressing content that they think is bad.
Same could be asked about China. So one of the reasons why I'm trying to bring this up, I don't get me wrong, maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but I'm okay with them suppressing, National Socialist, neo-National Socialist material. Maybe I shouldn't be that way, but I am okay with that. But repressing Republicans, possibly. I mean, I suspect they probably suppress libertarians, suppressing people who have legitimate and honest questions about COVID. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. And the files of Matt Taibbi, they prove that these big tech companies are in bed with the government. So how is it not a First Amendment breaking that they're doing this? I don't see in any world where this is appropriate or good or correct. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here because there's another point that I want to share that he makes. And okay, I may not get it perfectly there, but I think this is close. And yes, I have great Wi-Fi here. Ah, come on. Oh, now it's going to go
to 1 or 2 players.
Yeah, so that's another problem, is that these techniques that we've been discovering, naming, and quantifying, they're in the hands of a couple of.
This also is one of the reasons why I wanted to share that point. Very much against, yeah, and it's a fair point. Maybe it's wrong to even think that the National Socialists should be suppressed. And Moira Kitty, how are you doing? It is so good to see you here. I am talking about liberal, classical liberal, intelligent people who have had their eyes opened, not to conservatism, not to become conservatives, but because they've learned that we're being lied to. That is the point of the day. But since I did get dragged back to the original place, I wanted to point out one of my problems with all of this is these are unelected people. I didn't vote for whoever's running this algorithm. If I had, it might be a little bit different, but these are just people who have this massive arbitrary power over me. And I get that, we have to be a little bit realistic and understand that, it's very interesting to me that I'm having these technical issues on this next point. Let's see what it does here.
Her little pickup truck that I had bought for her literally crushed. She in the next few months.
I wasn't going to share this point, but since the algorithm is so intent on pushing me to it, he shares that, and it may just be coincidence. It may be. Classical liberals are conservatives now, and I'm going to get to that point if I make it through the night. And yes, Moira, as you have shown me in many cases, we are all getting played. But I'm changing gears a little bit. This professor lost his wife in a tragic car accident. And then coincidentally enough, his son ended up, he survived it, but he ended up in a car accident not long after. I realize this might sound paranoid, but after the stuff that's going on with Boeing, do we really put it past Google to do something about this guy revealing all this stuff?
Was it sort of a yuck, yuck, ha, ha kind of, buddy, no, it wasn't.
Oh no, he was dead serious, and he walked away. And I found that got picked up by the New York Times and 100 other in the next few months.
Was it sort of a Trump supporter?
Oh no, not at all, not at all. I'm actually friends with members of his family, believe it or not, and one of them who happens to be in Tennessee right this minute, hoping maybe we can get together. But point is, no, I'm not a Trump supporter, and Hillary did that thing to me, and that got picked up by the New York Times and 100 other mainstream publications, and I got cut off. That same summer, I gave a private briefing to a bunch of AGs. It was led by Ken Paxton of Texas, and I did my thing. I just told them what our findings were, and they were very, very concerned. I went out in the hall and waited. A few minutes later, one of them walked out. I know exactly who it was, and he's still an AG, and he walked up to me and said, "Dr. Epstein, I don't mean to scare you." He said, "But based on what you just told us, I predict you're going to be killed in some sort of accident in the next few months."
Was it sort of a yuck, yuck, ha, ha kind of, buddy, no, it wasn't.
Oh no, he was dead serious, and he walked away. And I thought, that was unnecessary. I mean, wow, what. And of course, I wasn't killed because I'm still here. But a few months later, my beautiful, amazing wife was killed in a horrendous car accident. She's driving her little black pickup truck, somehow loses control, getting onto the freeway. I mean, I talked to a woman who was in the car behind her, so I'm trying to understand what happened. She got broadsided by a tractor trailer truck towing 2 loads of cement.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask, how many people have watched Person of Interest? And if you know, you know.
Her little pickup truck that I had bought for her literally crushed. She did not die immediately. I was with her during those last 4 days. My head was against her chest. I heard her last heartbeat. I heard her last breath. And now, okay, that's 2019. So here's something else no one knows. But a couple of months ago,
And you can just tell, one, this bothers the crap out of him because it's, I mean, yeah, I have not been lucky in love, but I can only imagine that if I was married to someone that I was deeply in love with, losing her would just be terrible. Yes, so Moira Kitty, you 100% know what I'm referring to. You 100% know what I'm referring to. Matt Cheatwood's on episode 4. I love the first season, so I have no idea. She may not have been. I really don't know. That's more than I know. And yeah, whether she was murdered or whether it was an accident, it is terrible. And I do feel for the guy. I nearly lost my son, and I don't want to say much about it on the internet, but I know it's when someone that close to you is either dying or possibly dying, it chews you up.
The data coming into our online dashboard, which shows people, it shows people a summary of the data we're collecting in real time, 24 hours a day, through the computers of more than 14,000 registered voters in all 50 states. It's at americasdigitalshield.com. So if anyone wants to go there, americasdigitalshield.com. It also shows you this number that just keeps going up and up. It shows you how much data we've collected. As of, I checked it yesterday, we had collected more than 83 million ephemeral experiences. So the whole page itself updates every 5 minutes. So we've learned how to not just how to collect a lot of data, but how to analyze it very fast. But a couple of months ago, I happened to be checking the site, and there it was. This website was there, but there were no numbers. All the way through the site, there's supposed to be numbers and graphs, and there were no numbers and graphs. I figured it's at night. I figured, who am I going to call? So I tried reaching our head tech person. That didn't work. I tried reaching another tech person. He said he'll try to look into it. Then I thought, okay, I've got to call my son. So I called my son. So I have 3 sons, and I'm not going to say which one, but I called my son, and he said, Dad, don't worry, I'll run over to the special office. So there's a special office we have, which I've never even been to, and I don't know where it is, where some of the things happen that we do, because we have to take precautions, obviously.
Right.
So this is.
And I know he's kind of taking some time to get around to it. And it is true. Not every bad thing that happens is a conspiracy. So he may be seeing patterns that aren't really there. Yeah. No, you never get used to it. You never do.
Maybe 11 o'clock at night, and an hour goes by, more than an hour, and I'm saying, well, what's going on? What did he find? You know, maybe there's some equipment problem. So I tried reaching him. I can't reach him. A little while later, the phone rings. He said, Dad, I didn't make it to the office. I said, what happened? He said, well, I got broadsided by a black vehicle, which then drove away. He said, my car is totaled. He said, but don't worry, I'm okay. And he said, but I'm not going to be able to get to the office. I just thought you should know. I said, well, is there any sign of the person, whatever? And he said, no sign of him. The person drove away really fast. And all I can tell you is it was a black vehicle. Coincidence that Misty's pickup truck was also black, but her pickup truck disappeared from the impound yard. It was never examined forensically, and I was told it was brought somewhere to Mexico.
First of all, terribly sorry to hear all of this.
Oh, there's more. This has been going on for years.
Because when you first mentioned it, this awful, tragedy with your wife, I first thought, well, it's awful, and what are the odds that an attorney general would say that, and then that would happen almost exactly on the time scale. But maybe it's just a coincidence. But then you had the story with your son, same kind of thing. Then you had what did they do? They just sold off the car, gave away the car.
Apparently.
Wouldn't you own the car?
Wouldn't I? 2 years ago, my superb managing director, superb, wonderful, amazing person, married to an extremely.
And I want to stop it so that YouTube doesn't bring me down. Hello, Bone, meow, meow. And many talented total vehicles are resurrected in Mexico, and that's true. I had thought of that myself, that sometimes total vehicles don't end up going, mine didn't, but I knew it was going to happen. I guess I did put out catnip. It's called Conspiracy Theories. Yes, we've got the cats.
Handsome man who I was always very jealous of. And they're walking downtown San Diego Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. And out of the crowd, a man runs up to them, pulls a knife, and slits her husband's face from his ear down to his mouth, and then looks at her and laughs and runs away. She lasted another 2 or 3 months before she quit, and I don't blame her.
Right.
I do not blame her. Oh, yes, these are all probably coincidences. Part of me means that sincerely. I know I didn't sound sincere, but
it could be, I guess.
They all could just be coincidences, of course. But there are other things too. I mean, and then you got to think about it. You got to think about it from a business perspective. I had a guy. I had a billionaire businessman who I was trying to hit him up for money to support our research. Yeah. I failed. But he actually said straight out, he said, if I were Google, he said, I would take care of you, is the way he put it.
Right.
He's from Brooklyn, and so he said it in a certain way, He said, I would take care of you. And he didn't even flinch. Here's the problem. The problem is that my team and we're the only group in the world that is literally studying day and night all of these new techniques of manipulation, and that has developed a system to monitor these companies. Why isn't this happening at 100 universities?
Right. I suppose you also pose a threat in that.
And I would suggest it probably is happening at 100 universities. It's just that all the information is going to Google. Totaled vehicles are usually considered sold to the insurance company. I think that the web page just had some trouble, but interestingly enough, coincidentally enough, it was right before somebody plowed into his son with a dark vehicle. This guy, maybe he could be seeing patterns and chaos. His web page went down. Son couldn't get to the office. Then what? What happened? Well, I guess his son just, I don't know. I know when I told my car I got a freaking fractured skull, but I don't really, he doesn't say what happened to his son. Some people are nuts. If it can't make sense, I'll just label him as that. Okay, fair enough. Well, I will skip ahead to one more thing, and we will see if it makes any sense either.
Called and said, I need to tell you something. He said, I called Google for comment. He said, I spoke with a woman who I believe is the head of their PR department. He said, I don't know that for sure. He said, and she screamed at me. He said, that's very unprofessional. I've never seen that happen before. He said, and I'm going to tell you two things. Number one, you have their attention. Number two, if I were you, I would take precautions.
Probably good advice. Are you deterred at all? I like to think that if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't be deterred.
It's hard to answer that question because I'm certainly disturbed.
Right.
I've been disturbed by these things, which continue to happen. I miss Misty. I've been completely alone now since her death.
All right, I don't want to try your patience. Let me skip ahead and see if this point is any better for you.
Coincidental suffering that you've dealt with since you testified publicly, if that is in any way connected to Google, I suppose that's quite a healthy way of looking at it. To say, well, I'm suffering, and but this is the hand I'm dealt, and here's the opportunity that I have, and I'll make the best of it. You mentioned some other numbers that just came in. Does that pertain to the elections or to Google or to? Or
it pertains to everything. That's that famous line from Gary Oldman, you know, in Leon, the Professional.
Yeah.
Everyone. So yes, these new numbers we just got.
Yeah, agreed at Putin's cat. If he were making Boeing mad, there wouldn't be any coincidences. It would just be over and done. I will play the part about the numbers, and then if you're still interested, I may go to another point, and if not, I will move on to the next thing.
They pertain to everyone. This is an effect we call MEE, the multiple exposure effect. Here and there, now and then, I get some legitimate criticism from people with science backgrounds. Usually not. And that's why we're able to publish in top journals. But one of the criticisms, which is legitimate, is, look, when you do your experiment, you're only doing it, you know, with one opportunity that someone has to look at some biased search results. You know,
meaning you can't replicate it or something? Or?
Oh, no, we can replicate it. Others have replicated it. But what they're saying is, you don't know how long those new opinions are going to last.
Right.
This could be a very, very temporary phenomenon. And that's true. So I always have to say that in my scientific reports, and it's absolutely true. So we started at some point studying what we call the multiple exposure effect. Because in the real world, if Google's going to show people some biased content, and maybe they're actually paying attention and they're really trying to shift some opinions, they don't hit people just once.
Right.
In fact, in the weeks or months before an election, they might hit people dozens, hundreds of times with similarly biased content. So I said, let's research that. So we have been running experiments now for past couple of years in which we start out with a certain kind of manipulation on a certain platform. We have a perfect Twitter simulator. We have a perfect YouTube simulator. We can simulate all these environments.
Now, I would question how perfect those simulators are, but if we're willing to take him at his word.
So they see the biased content, we measure the shift, but then they're not done, because now we show them more content on that platform that's similarly biased. And then we ask them those questions again to see if there's more of a shift.
Right.
And then we do it again. So what happens if people are exposed repeatedly to similarly biased content? We first did it on our Google simulator. We found, wow, we get this percent, then we get this percent, then we get this percent. I'm going to skip over that because I want to get to the latest. Sure enough, the numbers go up each time, which tells you that in all the other research we've done over the years, we might actually be underestimating the power of this effect, because in the real world, Google can hit their users with similarly biased content repeatedly, and we're watching those numbers go up. So we did it on one platform, we did it on another platform, and we just did it on our Alexa simulator, which we call Dyslexa. Dyslexa. So we just did it with Dyslexa. So here's how it works. People are given some minimal information about two candidates who really did run for Prime Minister of Australia. Now, why are we using those people? Because we want our participants to be undecided.
Yeah.
So we ask them a bunch of questions. Who would you vote for? Who do you like? Who do you trust? That kind of thing. They tend to split right down the middle because they've never heard of these people before. Now, they go on to our Alexa, Dyslexa, they go to, and there are 5 questions that they can ask our personal assistant, and they can choose 2 out of the 5 we list. So if they say they choose a question, Dyslexa answers, and she's a perfect simulation of Alexa, so she answers in Alexa's voice, and she gives an answer that might be biased for one candidate, the other candidate, or neither. So there's random assignment, which you have to have in scientific work. And then we ask the questions again and see if there's a shift. So these are brand new numbers. So the first time that we put them through this, we got a 60% shift. 60%.
So is he trying to replicate? Yeah, that he, and I haven't played that part, but yeah, that's how it all started. Was basically the study had a replication of Google, and but he also monitors Google, and he gets a lot of data from that. I maybe y'all don't find it as fascinating as I do, and he may be exaggerating the threats against him. I don't know. I'm not enough of an intel person to know that. I do know that one of my best friends has said that one time could be random, 2 times you're seeing a pattern, 3 times is enemy activity. And granted, he only had 2 wrecks, but you know, other things do make you wonder if maybe this is enemy activity. The reason I wanted to share about this manipulation study, and I'll continue it here in a bit if you're interested. You can see this kind of manipulation in every type of media. I see it all the time, as do I. The reason I want to share this is, and it is with both sides of you know, both conservative and liberal friends, but I believe I see it more with my liberal friends. Maybe they can't try. It is possible, and you know, I don't know. That is data I don't know, but I noticed that they seem to accept things that I found hard to believe. For example, the example I'll give, and it's just one, and you don't have to believe that I know what the hell I'm talking about, but essentially, I sent a friend of mine this wonderful debate between two professors. One was debating that COVID was censored, that the government did a terrible job with it, and that was wrong. The other one was debating that there may have been some censorship, but largely what the government did was the right thing to do. If I was targeted over there, Sashi says, I would not be doing an interview. I would just go missing. And yeah, trust me, I think about that all the time, but instead, here I am. But I sent this video to my friend. I think I've talked about it on earlier streams. And I'd always thought this guy was really open-minded, but several times he just kind of just rejected stuff I'd sent him dismissively. And maybe you guys are seeing the reasons why, but I failed to see it. And his response to me was, well, you know, that debate's already been had and won. And I beg to differ. I don't think until recently that the debate has been had at all. It's been censored. It's been taken offline. It was just decided that the vaccines are good, the quarantines are good. And well, look, I don't want to go so far as to say that I side with the other side either. But what I absolutely think is we should have had debate. Is he trying to prove that Google is evil? Well, he may be now. I think originally, and again, I haven't shared the beginning of it. I tried to skip to the salacious points, and maybe that was wrong. But originally, all he was really doing was studying Google's activity. That was it. Authoritarians love licking the boot. Yeah, you're not wrong. But essentially, this is why I'm sharing this. I am suggesting that possibly the reason why erstwhile reasonable friends have suddenly turned closed-minded and decided on a narrative that I can't accept. Yeah, possibly. And I have no idea, honestly, what authority he has to study Google. I would question you whose authority is supposed to stop him. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. But if you would like, I can go on with this, or if you'd rather, I can move on to the next thing. I think I'm intriguing some of you, and I'm probably irritating others. But I found this thing very fascinating. I think that the findings of his study are interesting, and you would, well, again, I guess I'm not understanding why you have the right to study Goldman Sachs, whether it's to prove they're evil or whether it's just to study it. That's none of my business. But yeah, it could be a salient point if he started out saying that Google was evil. I guess here's what I'll do, right or wrong. I'll go back to the beginning and just play it for a bit and see how well that answers your questions.
The science guy. Every single thing we do is relevant to everything that's happening right now.
Right.
I will skip ahead through the intro.
It's much worse than you think. So however bad you think it is, it's much worse. So I can just give you two numbers and maybe that will summarize it for you. Google alone in this year's presidential election, if we don't do some extraordinary things to stop them, which might be impossible, Google alone will be able to shift between 6.4 million and 25.5 million votes in the presidential election, generally speaking, with no one having the slightest idea that they've been manipulated, and generally speaking, without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
So when you say 6 to 24 million, are you talking about, does that include campaigns buying advertisements, say, which obviously could shift votes, but there would be a paper trail there, and that's kind of fair game? You can buy a TV ad or a, no, you're shaking your head, no.
Right, because all the usual forms of influence are, as you just implied, they're competitive. Because they're competitive, their net effect on elections, even the dirty tricks, the net effect is relatively small. I mean, here and there, it's a few thousand votes for sure. And yes, this year, the Dems might be doing ballot harvesting better than the Republicans are this year. But I actually saw Senator Daines give a talk about this issue, and he complained that we're not doing as good a job as the Dems on ballot harvesting. Let's get going on that, people. I saw him say that himself. So most forms of influence, everything you can think of from billboards to TV ads, are inherently competitive. But with Google and a couple of other tech companies, but mainly Google, there's a problem. If the platform itself wants to support one candidate or one party, there's nothing you can do. Google's home page is seen 500 million times a day just in the United States. What if on Google's home page right now, every now and then, in a partisan fashion, they're sending out register to vote reminders? What if they're doing that right this minute? I mean, let's say you got one of those messages on their home page. You wouldn't think twice about it, but if you hadn't registered yet, it might kind of nudge you a little bit, right?
Right.
Well, guess what? I happen to know, in fact, now your audience is the first audience in the world to know, because we just calculated this, that even though it's still early in the election process, right now, Democrats are getting register to vote reminders on Google's homepage at about 2.5 times the rate that Republicans are.
Is that because of the number of Democrats and Republicans using it, or is that because of who is getting the notifications?
No, we're talking about proportions here. I'm saying that proportionally speaking, I'm saying that Democrats are getting those reminders at 2.5 times the rate that Republicans are. Right now, that's happening.
It almost makes me want to throw my hands in the air and say, this corporation is so powerful, they control everything. I'm not a major research psychologist, so I don't look into it. But the moment you start to look into these things, you say, oh, wow, look, the situation's even worse than you thought it was.
And respectfully, yes, that is true, Matt. In theory, they have no duty to do that. My thought on that, though, is that, number one, if you have that much influence, should we be allowing Google to do that? And number two, the Matt Taibbi papers, which I strongly suggest everybody read, prove that there's strong government collusion and all of this stuff. So if the government is, and again, you'd have to read Matt Taibbi's papers, but if the government is telling them, hey, make sure to shift those notifications, then that's totally wrong. They're not supposed to tell us who to vote for. Yeah, the will not to be influenced, and you probably have a stronger will than I do if that's the case. And I do use another search engine most of the time, so I'll play a little bit more, and then unless everyone's really interested, I will move on.
Well, what am I supposed to do? It's March of 2024. We have how many more months of dirty tricks until the elections?
But just to drive this point home, if Google is doing something like that, which they are because we're measuring it,
right?
And then at some point they're going to send out partisan mail-in your ballot reminders, and at some point they're going to send out partisan go vote reminders, and they're also stacking the deck in their search results. So their search results are highly biased. I can actually send your audience to a web page, and you can actually see what the bias is right now on Google search results.
How does one calculate that?
How does one tell? We right now are collecting data with their permission through the computers of more than 14,000 registered voters in all 50 states, politically balanced. And all that information coming into the computers of real people, we are aggregating in real time and analyzing in real time. Regarding bias, well, we're looking at the web pages that Google is sending people to, and we're using 3 different organizations' ratings of political bias, taking the mean, and then calculating a mean for each search position in Google search results. So I hope I'm not being too detailed here, but
no.
The point is, we can measure very precisely whether there is bias in Google search results, and there's extraordinary bias in Google search results sufficient to shift millions of votes in this year's election. And we've been doing this kind of monitoring since 2016, so I can tell you about the number of votes they shifted in many elections, not just what they're shifting right now.
So is it
And so, why am I even bothering with this? Essentially, two reasons. One is I've written at length about how I believe that at one time I believed that the election was not stolen from Trump. And yeah, I probably will, but I'm single. My son is probably he survived, but I will probably never see him again. Other than my dog, um, they can do what they want. But when you listen to stuff like this, I don't know that I can go so far as to say, well, Trump was right. But at the same time, I can no longer look at Republicans who are saying, well, yes, yes, Matt Cheatwood, my overpaid assistant, Cassie, she helped me to find all of these, and now she is licking her paw and looking up at me with her sweet doggy eyes and yawning. But I can't look at Republicans now and say that they're completely crazy, not after learning things like this. They may still be intellectually wrong, but I can't look at all of them with a broad brush and say, well, they're just all just totally disingenuous. And, they absolutely have no right to think what they think about the election. There are some ways where there are some points here. The second reason is because while I realize that most of the people in this chat have strong wills and aren't influenced by Google's crap, I have a lot of really good and really intelligent friends who are buying the party line, hook, line, and sinker. Talking about elected pubs or pubs, well, a little bit of both. A little bit of both. Mainly people that I know. As far as the elected people, I think I would be hard pressed to find a name of someone that I actually respect. I think that they're, to me, at the risk of sounding like I'm wishy-washy here, to me, the claim that Hillary Clinton's election was stolen and the claim that Trump's election was stolen, y'all may think I'm full of it, but I feel like they both weigh about the same in the scale right now. If you're basically going to believe the one, you should also listen to the other. If you're going to disbelieve one, then maybe you should disbelieve the other. But what I see is a bunch of people saying one or the other. And I think that's, is that a candidate that I should be looking into? Yeah, please let me know. I will be happy to look into any of them. I'm going to move on to the next topic. So, what can we do about this? Again, I like to at least vaguely try to have solutions. And I'm hard pressed to find anybody that I'm really willing to listen to that's proposing anything positive or constructive. At the risk of losing all of you, he's already an elected Virginia state representative. See, that shows how much I really need to learn. But yeah, I'll be happy to look him up. Obama is president. Trump wins. If they were going to steal it, Hillary would obviously win. Yeah, it's not a bad point. I really like. He took a long time to grow on me, but I've gotten to where I really I'm going to come out on this stream and confess that I like some of the things that Dr. Phil has been saying lately. And I realize that he's probably painting himself as a right-wing nut, but I don't think that he is. I don't think he ever was. And I'm going to present my evidence here and also try to suggest that some of the things he's doing here could help lead to a solution to some of this divisiveness. And let me get that open. Nope, we already talked about that. Here we go.
I'm going to teach them how to disagree without tearing.
Oh, and let me give some context. I guess I didn't start it from the beginning. Dr. Phil is talking to this gentleman. He used to be a Republican. He wrote speeches. He was a pundit for them. The states are really in the control of the elections. Yeah, well, yeah, as they should be, honestly. And I guess, I don't know, that's debatable too. I think the Uniparty did not think Trump would win in 2016. No, I agree. And I think that's why they're scared shitless now. And that's not to say I support Trump or think he's the Messiah. I'm just saying they're so scared of him that they're doing all these crazy, kind of stupid things. And frankly, if Trump does win, I would suggest they have themselves to blame, because all these people are reacting against this. The media was predicting, yeah, no, it was a bombshell when he won. Hillary blew it and she sucked. Amen. And then Trump went crazy. Yeah, well, yeah, I will vote for the most stable person. That makes perfect sense to me. Okay, so this gentleman used to be a Republican. He worked with the Republican Party. Then he became disillusioned. And now he teaches courses where he tries to, part of what he tries to do is to get people to understand that the person on the other side of the aisle, the politician may be evil. Trump may be evil. Hillary may be evil, but the people who voted for them are not necessarily evil. And that's something that we do have to come to grips with, or we're going to tear this fucking country apart. So let's see what this gentleman has to say to Dr. Phil.
Each other apart. And you should join me in that conversation, because the only way that we're going to save society, and I think we're too late, but the only chance that we have is for young people to stand up and for them to say, enough already. Enough cancel culture, enough wokeism, enough of accusations and labeling of people. If you give up and if I give up, then we will surely, we will never recover. And the way that I look at it is I'm very pessimistic about my own future. And this is going to sound horrible, and you may not even want listeners to hear it. But my friends know I feel this way. I don't think I'm going to be around for that long. And I'm a little bit thankful for that, because I think those things that made America so great, the willingness to take the arrows, the willingness to fight for freedom, the willingness to stand up when things were unfair and to try to fix that which is wrong. And boy, there are things that are wrong in this country. But the willingness to make a difference, we're just critics now. And all we do is accuse and we label. And if I'm not long for this world, I don't mind that, because I never thought I would be around to see the decline and fall of the United States of America. And I had this conversation with Mitch McConnell, and he tore me apart because he's an optimist. But I know what the American people are saying. I know what the American people are thinking. And all you have to do is go to a session in LA or San Francisco or New York or Philadelphia or Boston, and people hate each other and they rip into each other and they don't learn from each other. And it is the worst on college campuses. So you and I together should do one of these sessions, because I think it'd be great for your listeners, great for your viewers.
And the long and the short of it is they do a session on that. And since you're asking who this guy is, I will do what I probably should have done and just start it from the beginning. I tried to skip all the boring stuff, but I guess that wasn't great. So here, I think this is where Dr. Phil introduces.
Still so affiliated, but that's what he's best known. society and what's going on socially. So you're going to hear me talking about a lot of that going forward. Today, I'm speaking with somebody that shares that with me, and somebody that I think has spent his entire career getting his finger on the pulse of what Americans really think. I'm talking about Dr. Frank Luntz. He's an American political communications consultant. He's an author, pollster, and a pundit, best known for developing talking points and other messaging for Republican causes. He's not still.
Well, yeah, and I did summarize at the beginning, but essentially, he was a speechwriter for the Republicans. He came up with some of their slogans. He became disillusioned. Now he is a professor who's trying to bring people together. I did fail to put down his name, so that's my bad. But
Still so affiliated, but that's what he's best known for. In both 2012 and 2016 elections, Frank was the only non-journalist invited to host a debate of GOP presidential contenders. Now, he's president of Frank Luntz and Associates, Frank I. Luntz and Associates.
so there it is. It is Frank Luntz and Associates, and he is a disillusioned Republican. And so it's funny that you say that. I honestly think that a lot of people will think Dr. Phil has gone crazy. I know he went on The View and basically threw back on them some of the things that they said. And hello, Thade. Thank you very much for showing up here. I am fumbling through my through my stream. No lives matter, and a school did hire him, so maybe, you know, take that for what it is. I refuse to be brought together with lunatics and idiots. Well, yeah, fair enough. And Dr. Phil is never a good doctor. Okay, well, since y'all don't really want to hear what he has to say, I will skip that. I did, however, like that they have basically Democrats and Republican students talking to each other. And then I thank you for enjoying the show. You're right, I did need to do more homework, but I promise you this, I tried to do a little better job on it today than I did on the last one. So I will skip to my favorite liberal. Luntz has experienced multiple strokes, which he has openly discussed in several interviews. Okay, I did not know that. So we will not worry about healing the divide. I will just simply skip all the way, not quite to the end, but almost to the end. So I have recently heard that a gentleman named Winston Marshall, who evidently was a rock singer, so I don't exactly know how or why this happened. Oh, thank you very much, Matt. You're very kind. You're very kind. Somehow or other, though, this Winston Marshall person ended up debating Nancy Pelosi. And I likely should have done a little more research. Yes, his debate at Oxford. I just learned about that, frankly, today. And I decided that that was what I was wanting to end the stream on. Yes, Moira. YouTube is censoring. I hate that. And I know they've knocked down a couple of mine too. So I get it. But let's, I'm going to start, which may be the wrong way to, oh, you've been trying to comment and you've been censored? Sorry about that. I did not know. I promise I haven't done it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe one of the wrenches has, but I have yet to block anybody's comment ever, but I'm sure it will happen eventually. Pelosi made herself look like an idiot and a lunatic. Yes. So I'm going to start, right or wrong. with some of the Pierce Morgan interview of Winston Marshall, and then I'm going to dive into the interview itself. Yeah, I don't think it's the mods. I know the mods pretty well, and it would take something pretty, pretty serious for anyone to block you. And I promise you, I there might be something you could say, but I can't think of what it would be. So, all right, let us present everybody's favorite person, Pierce Morgan, and whatever. And he interviews Winston Marshall, and they talk about her hypocrisies. And I will share this so that hopefully your OBS comment vanished. That's weird. Well, okay. I will try to look at that later. I made a Hillary joke. It was censoring me before that. I just hadn't realized it at first. Wow. Well, that's interesting.
That's a good point. I don't know about that. We can't have him laughing as he reads his own intro. Try and control yourself, Winston. You're a cultural hero. For today, anyway. Winston Marshall is a cancel culture pioneer. He was a member of the British rock group Mumford & Sons, only to be forced out and publicly shamed for supporting a book which criticised the hard left protest movement, Antifa. He was recently invited to debate the former US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the Oxford Union on the subject of populism. And millions have now seen what happened next.
What do the Republicans say? Fake news. So they're diminishing that in the eyes of these poor souls who are looking for some answers. We've given them to them, but they're blocked by some of their views on guns. They have the 3 Gs, guns, gays, God. A snake oil salesman sells them a bill of goods and then takes office, and the only legislation put forth is a bill that gives a tax bill that gives 83% of the benefits to the top 1%.
Populism has become a word used synonymously with racist. We've heard ethno-nationalist, with bigot, with hillbilly, redneck, with deplorables. And I'm sure Congresswoman Pelosi will agree that the entire month of June 2020, when the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon was under siege and under insurrection by radical progressives, those too were dark days for America. Yes?
There is no equivalence there.
You may be thinking now that Trump is a populist. You are right. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary in 2016, so should Brussels, and so should Westminster in 2016, and so too should Congresswoman Pelosi, instead of saying the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked. Quote, hijacked.
And yes, I don't doubt that they're watching us closely. I think almost all of YouTube censorship is automated these days. And yeah, I would agree with that. It's one of the reasons why I'm trying to stop these without letting more than about 2 minutes to go by. It's not so much that I'm trying to be annoying or necessarily that I'm pausing on a good point, although I'm trying to do that as well. But I've learned the hard way that if I let more than 2 or 3 minutes of this go by, they'll just knock the whole thing down. And while it may not look like it, I actually have put a little bit of work into these, and I don't want them knocked down. Pelosi here looking like the hero that we all know that she is.
Well, Winston joins me now. Winston, first of all, kudos. It was fantastic to watch you.
It doesn't. Okay, good. I'm glad of that. So I can go back to that interview if you guys want, but I actually, I am more interested in what he said in the debate. So you're probably wondering, why didn't you start with that? Well, I couldn't find the whole video. Or actually, I thought I'd found it, and I'd started to write notes about it, and then all of a sudden it was gone. I couldn't find it anymore. So what instead I have is a 13-minute splice of it, and because I only have that 13-minute splice, yeah, and I need to watch the rest of it. But because I only have the 13-minute splice, I don't have a lot of the things that Nancy Pelosi said, and I wanted to make sure that we had some of the context of her responses to this. So let me share. Winston Marshall arguing that populism is not a threat to democracy. Let's see what he says.
6th has been mentioned. A dark day for America, indeed.
And this is one of the things that I like. I'm actually, I'm not one of these people that wants to deny January 6th. Having said that, I think it is totally hypocritical to only talk about January 6th and then ignore years upon years, decades of riots that were inspired by Democrat infiltrators.
And I'm sure Congresswoman Pelosi will agree that the entire month of June 2020, when the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon was under siege and under insurrection by radical progressives, those too were dark days for America. Yes?
There is no equivalence there. So, yes.
So you don't agree? That's fine, you don't agree, that's fine.
But it is not like what happened on January 6th, which was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States.
So you don't agree? But you'll condemn those days.
And I noticed she doesn't say a word about whether she condemns those days or not. Hello, JPRPH, how are you doing? And I've listened to a little bit more of those Ren talks, but I haven't quite got all the way through them.
My point, though, is that all political movements are susceptible to violence and indeed insurrection. And if we were arguing that fascism was a threat to democracy, I'd be on that side of the house. Indeed, the current populist age is a movement against fascism. I've got quite a lot to get through. Populism, as you know, is the politics of the ordinary people against an elite. Populism is not a threat to democracy. Populism is democracy. And why else have universal suffrage if not to keep elites in check? Ladies and gentlemen, given the success of Trump, and more recently Javier Milei taking a chainsaw to the state behemoth of Argentina's bureaucratic monster, you'd be mistaken for thinking this was a right-wing populist age. But that would be ignoring Occupy Wall Street. That would be ignoring Jeremy Corbyn's for the many, not the few. That would be ignoring Bernie against the billionaires, RFK Jr. against Big Pharma, and more recently, George Galloway against his better judgment. Now, all of them, including Galloway, recognize genuine concerns of ordinary people being otherwise ignored by the establishment. I'm actually rather surprised that our esteemed opposition, Congressman Pelosi, is on that side of the motion. I thought the left was supposed to be anti-elite. I thought the left was supposed to be anti-establishment. Today, particularly in America, the globalist left have become the establishment. I suppose for Ms. Pelosi to have taken this side of the motion, she'd be arguing herself out of a job. But it's here in Britain where right and left populists united for the supreme act of democracy, Brexit. Polls have showed the number one reason people voted for Brexit was sovereignty, for more democracy. Thank you. What was the response of the Brussels elites? They did everything in their power to undermine the democratic will of the British people, and the Westminster elite were just as disgraceful. As we've heard, David Cameron called the voters fruitcakes, loonies, and closet racists.
And Matt Cheatwood is saying it's ridiculous. The party that calls itself Democrats is against populism, which is by definition democracy. I may share it later, although I know I have to be careful with it. But, on Rumble, Russell Brand has an amazing interview with this gentleman who he discusses this. We no longer care about the powers that be anyway, the Pelosi's and the Bidens, and frankly, maybe even the Trumps. I don't know. Don't really care about democracy, don't really care about us, but they care about the institutions of democracy, because that's where they get their power. Absolutely cannot abide hypocrisy. And yeah, it's very distasteful to me as well. How far into this have I gotten? 6 minutes. I'm not going to skip. I'm just going to keep playing for a bit and see if you enjoy the remaining of the things that he says. I'm very wary of unfettered democracy, and that's exactly correct. There are so many people. One of my favorite YouTubers feels that, and it's because he's one of my favorites because he talks intelligently about other subjects, but then he'll talk about politics, and he'll say that talking about republicanism or democratic principles is just semantics. But if you've read the Federalist Papers, you know that it's not. The unfettered democracy was something that the founding fathers were rightfully terrified of. Having said that, why is it that we're being told, well, all this stuff is a danger to democracy, when they don't care about democracy at all? All they care about is that we do what we're told. But I'll play a little bit more of Winston Marshall and his argument that populism is not a threat to democracy.
The Liberal Democrats did everything they could to overturn a democratic vote. Keir Starmer campaigned for a second referendum. Elites would have had us voting and voting and voting.
And this is something that's been going on forever. We want democracy, but we want it to vote our way. It leads inexorably, exactly correct, to oppressions of minorities by majorities. That is 100% correct. I wish it weren't.
Until we voted their way. Indeed, that's what happened in Ireland and in Denmark. Let's look at some of the other populist movements. The Hong Konger populist revolt is literally called the pro-democracy movement. The farmer revolts from Netherlands to Germany, France, Greece to Sri Lanka. Farmers are taking their tractors to the road to protest ESG policy that's floated down to us from those all-knowing, infallible elites of Davos. The trucker movement in Canada became anti-elitist when petty tyrant Prime Minister Justin Trudeau froze their bank accounts, not the behavior of a democratic head of state. The Gilets jaunes in France, ULEZ in London, working people protesting policy that hurt them. And how are they treated? They're called conspiracy theorists. They're called far right, by the mayor as well. Ladies and gentlemen, populism is the voice of the voiceless. The real threat to democracy is from the elites. Now, don't get me wrong, we need elites. If President Biden has shown us anything, we need someone to run the countries. When the president has severe dementia, it's not just America that crumbles, the whole world burns. But let's examine the elites. European corporations spend over 1 billion euros a year lobbying Brussels. US corporations spend over $2 billion a year lobbying in DC. 2/3 of Congress receive funding from pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer alone spent $11 million in 2021. They made over $10 billion in profit. No wonder then that 66% of Americans think the economy is rigged against them for the rich and the powerful. And by the way, we used to have a word for when big business and big government were in cahoots. And I think any students here of early 20th century Italian history know what I'm talking about.
America is demonstrably an oligarchy right now. I would agree with that. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to show on this silly little show that is poorly done. I'm trying to say that democracy, or whatever you want to call it, republicanism, I think that I agree with that professor that y'all didn't want to listen to. I think it may be too late, but even if it is too late, I foolishly feel like I should be out here throwing out my voice and trying to say that we can't believe them, but yet we also can't be paranoid, as that one professor evidently seemed to be. And I also feel like we should be trying to find solutions, but I know that solutions are desperately hard to find. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. 10:27. According to YouTube, this is the most replayed part of the video.
He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and that's a quote. You may be thinking now that Trump is a populist. You are right. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary in 2016, so should Brussels, and so should Westminster in 2016, and so too should Congresswoman Pelosi, instead of saying the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked. Quote, hijacked. Thank you. What about the mainstream media? Let me read you some mainstream media headlines. The New Yorker, the day before the 2016 election. The case against democracy.
And remember, democracy is supposed to be the all-consuming, all-important thing.
The Washington Post, the day after the election. The problem with our government is democracy. The LA Times, June 2017. The British election is a reminder of the perils of too much democracy. Vox, June 2017. The two eminent political scientists say the problem with democracy is voters. New York Times, June 2017. The problem with participatory democracy is the participants. Mainstream media elites are part of a class who don't just disdain populism, they disdain the people. If the Democrats had put half their energy into delivering for the people, Trump wouldn't even have a chance in 2024. He shouldn't have a chance. You've had power for 4 years. From the fabricated Steele dossier to trying to take him off the ballot in both Maine and Colorado, the Democrats are the anti-Democrat party.
Wow, is everyone getting censored right now? Maybe. Could you not hear me? Or did that not come through? Testing, 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 testing. I can hear myself. It may not be coming through for you guys. Did YouTube take this down? I don't know. Well, okay, you can hear me just fine. Could you hear the video? I know the video is a little bit quiet. I have it turned up as loudly as it'll go, but okay, you could hear the video. Okay. I will then let him finish his point because he makes it better than I do, honestly.
All we need now is the Republicans to come out as the pro-monarchist party. Ladies and gentlemen, populism is not a threat to democracy, but I'll tell you what is. It's elites ordering social media to censor political opponents. It's police shutting down dissenters, be it anti-monarchists in this country or gender-critical voices here, or last week in Brussels, the National Conservative movement. I'll tell you what is a threat to democracy. It's Brussels, DC, Westminster, the mainstream media, big tech, big pharma, corporate collusion, and the Davos cronies. The threat to democracy comes from those who write off ordinary people as deplorable. The threat to democracy comes from those who smear working people as racist. The threat to democracy comes from those who write off working people as populists. And I'll say one last thing. This populist age can be brought to an end at the snap of a finger. All that needs to be done is for elites to start listening to, respecting, and, God forbid, working for ordinary people. Thank you.
Seems to be a 30-second lag. Okay, yeah, I'll believe that. Essentially, I love that, and like I say, I just found that today and tried to make sure that I had certain points in it, but I ended up just playing nearly the whole thing because I just loved it so much. That's exactly what I'm really kind of trying to say. I don't want there to be no elites. I don't want there to be no rich people. I don't want the government to come down. I just would like for there to be someone who actually listens to us. And, fine, maybe the government can't do everything that we would like. I get that, but at least don't treat us with scorn and act like we're complete dumbasses and, gaslight us when we say something that seems pretty obvious, honestly. And then, oh no, you just don't understand. Well, okay, well, please tell me what's the point that I'm missing? And then you hear nothing back, except that you're just evidently just wrong. One of the reasons why I've done it this way, I wanted again to demonstrate there's a fair number of left-wingers. I don't think there's any real right-wingers that I've introduced to you today at all. There's left-wingers who are seeing that we're being deceived. Now, of course, I don't know if we'll ever get the right-wingers to understand that they're being deceived, but abusers, oh, it's so right, Moira. I was abused as a child, and it's correct. Abusers don't respect their victims. That's why the government treats us like that. Yeah, we've gotten a government of bullies, by bullies, and for the bullies. And if you wonder why sometimes maybe I'm a little too deferential to everyone, maybe I'm act like, oh, thank you, Moira, you're so kind. If you're, I detest bullies. I just absolutely hate them. And so I've gone probably too far the other way, trying not to be like bullies. And, I've made the mistake in the past and probably will again of confusing bullies, bully behavior with just simple strength. I had intended for my next video to be the end of the stream. I don't know. Yeah, I do. It's Matt, you may or may not understand. It's a certain psychological thing, which is not to excuse it. I am really trying to cut back on the apologies, because even whether I apologize too much, I know that when you apologize a certain number of times, it sounds insincere. And at the very least, I don't want them to sound insincere. That is likely a discussion for another day. I'd intended to end the stream with this next video, but I also had kind of hoped that I'd make it to midnight. So I'm going to play this video, and then I'm basically going to leave it up to you guys. If you would like me to look at some videos of your own or something that you would suggest that we watch, then I'll be happy to talk about that. Or if there's a topic that anyone wants to discuss, I know this may sound weird. If there's anything you would like me to read, yeah, Matt, I really would like to stick around till at least close to midnight, because I am the tired blogger, what blogs at midnight. I came across this. So some of you may remember in the last stream I played the Libertarian anthem, which I may play again, because the Libertarian in me just loves it. But what I'd originally come across, for good or ill, I subscribed to Elon Musk in X, and he shared this, and I loved it, and I'm going to share it myself. I tried to share it with one of my friends who just was like dismissive, because I think he thought I was trying to say that we have all shifted to right wing. Unless I misunderstand the point of the song, and I may, my videos will get you in trouble. My main YouTube account still can't comment in here. Good Lord. I hate that. I think what this song is saying, well, you know what? I'll just play it. You guys are intelligent enough. You can make up your own minds. And yes, this is a song that introduced me to Frisbee, and he is the one that came up with that beautiful, well, at least he's the one that sang. Maybe he didn't write it, I don't know, but he's the one that sang the Libertarian anthem, which I think will be the next thing after this, with y'all's, if y'all will, yeah, I'm babbling now. So, right or wrong, I just love that song. Sashi, I was also told that I had what? Sashi has white privilege. Congratulations. You have joined the ranks of the rest of us who are indeed privileged. I know that while I have slopped hogs and worked restaurants and worked retail and been slugging pounds and tons of pop, I have enjoyed my white privilege. That's all I'm going to say about that. They think it's shifting right because the left, well, no, you're not wrong. And to be fair, I probably don't have enough of a sense of humor. A friend of mine sent me some stuff about RFK and the brain worms. I honestly didn't watch it. My justification to myself was, if you don't like watching some of the things that I present about Biden, then why should I watch your things about RFK? But that may be just a rationalization. I think at least one psychology professor has discussed the alarming rate of mental illness among the progressive left. And yeah, and I know I have my issues. I definitely do. I know I do. But having said that, isn't it also scary that there's all these issues, and isn't there something causing it? I don't know why it got loud. The other video was very quiet, and then this guy was very loud. So I'll turn down the volume a little bit on the next one. But I hope everyone will enjoy the libertarian anthem being played again. Oh goodness. Let's see if I can find the one that we played the other day. Well, I can't find that one, so I'll just play the one that is in front of me. I just noticed that looks very similar to the Stargate. I wonder if he did that on purpose. Is it possible this guy is also a geek? My goodness. Wonderful. And that, the Russian national anthem. Oh, that's funny. That's wonderful. That is the part of libertarianism that I actually like, though. Not that it's like the Soviet national anthem, but that it's always been one of my central tenets, to a fault, probably. I just want to live and let live. He has a live vid of this. I I don't remember enough Russian to really pull it off, but yes, Sashi Tovarish. Очень хорошо. All right, let's play the rest of this, for good or ill. Test obs to, let's see. Test obs intro to on your channel. Okay, let's see if I'm smart enough to get that open. Putin's cat. And hopefully everyone will subscribe to Putin's cat as well. Because I can, I think. will put your channel in the chat. And please, everybody, subscribe to Putin's cat. He is very interesting. I know you don't do a lot of content, but what you do is fun. I like the stuff that you do. I haven't taken some of your suggestions, but it's not because they're not good suggestions. It's the complexities of life. Okay, there we are. Putin's cat. It's in the lives. Yes, I watched a little bit of the Battlestar Galactica, which was wonderful. Test Ob's title fade. It's Test Ob's intro to. Test Ob's intro to. Okay. Let's see what we got here. I hope I have the right one. So if Moira Kitty were a Soviet, this would be her. This is my belief. You are correct. It is the same tune. That's crazy. So does that mean that the libertarians are Soviet plants? Nah, I don't think that. But that is an interesting thing to point out. Maybe Frisbee is trying to do some subtle artsy fartsy thing. I don't know. So what else would you guys like me to play and comment on? Let me look for the source. Somebody had asked a question earlier, and I thought it might be interesting. Oh, no. No, this is not a Tarantino movie. Let's see. I used to be subscribed to a channel that was a Russian protest channel, and I don't know that I still have that. I bet I've unsubscribed because I didn't listen to them for such a long time. I made that point on one of my earlier streams, and I admit it. It's easier to find Russian protest stuff than certain COVID and whatchamacallit stuff. Russian protest music site. No, I don't see it now. And it's been too long. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he had just the most beautiful voice. And while my Russian is very, I only know like 2 words, they sang this on the Red October. You know what? Let's look that up. What was sung on the Red October? Beautiful Soviet anthem. I will play this.
We will pass through the American patrols, past their sonar nets, and lay off their largest city and listen to their rock and roll while we conduct missile drills. And when we are finished, the only sound they will hear is our laughter. A great day, comrades. We sail into history.
Caterpillar engaging.
Caterpillar engaging,
That's just wonderful. It's funny. I have a love-hate thing for Russia. There's so many beautiful things about their culture, and then there's communism and lots of deaths and oppression. Oh no! Don't be sorry, Putin's cat. I think that's really cool. That that is the same as the Soviet national anthem. Okay, we have about 23 minutes till midnight. What's something that I've always just wanted to play for you guys? You know what? I think I know what I want to play. This this is a song that I heard as a youngster, and because I was very young when it came out, and because in the 70s we were, oh crap, there was a link you posted. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? Oh man, I can't see it. Let's see. Sometimes YouTube does that too. If you're not a mod, sometimes they don't let you post links. Let me see if I can fix that. No, I don't want to ban you. Where is it? I'm sorry for all this silence. It's a 4-minute video. I have Putin's cat. I have tried before my hard drive burnt out. I downloaded a couple of videos from YouTube, but it seemed like my program, for whatever reason, didn't like to cooperate. We still have 70 minutes on the Galactica 2004 mini-series. Well, let me know what time you're going to stream that. If it's not terribly late, I'll be happy to join you. I don't know if it is the one I remember. Oh no, that's Putin's cat. Might be time for Ustream. Okay, I'm going to play this song and then I'm going to try again to find Matt's link. And or if you're not able, the vid is called "Why is the U.S. an Oligarchy?" Okay, well let's get that open. Why the U.S. is an oligarchy. All right. Yeah. Weinstein, whatever. Why the U.S. is an oligarchy. Crap. Sometimes YouTube really gets. If you have the source on your computer, no ads, no YouTube issues, then you can delete it later. Yeah, not wrong. By Kyle Talks Money. Okay. Okay, I think I see it. So instead of presenting that, I will present this. Why the U.S. is an oligarchy. Let's learn that. Maybe.
Oligarchy, a word usually associated with deranged Russian oil tycoons, is suddenly front and center in many Americans' minds thanks to a new study by researchers at Princeton and Northwestern. The analysis of 1,779 recent policy outcomes found that economic elites and organized groups representing business interests have substantial independent impacts on U.S. government policy, while average citizens have little or no independent influence. In other words, the US is an oligarchy, a system of government where a small number of elites rule. Everyone else, not so much. This might seem obvious to many. After all, everyone knows economic elites run the show in the United States. As it turns out, there are surprisingly few studies out there on this topic. That's what makes this study so important. If we want to have an informed debate about issues of money and influence, Those things everyone knows have to be backed up with real data. Let's look behind the headline to see what the research really says. The research was done by two political scientists, Martin Gylens and Benjamin Page, and had two parts. First, they measured the amount of political influence various groups have in America. Then, they checked this against some technical definitions of democracy, oligarchy, and other forms of government. Not only do the wealthy have the most influence, ordinary voters have basically known. To have political influence in this case means that Congress responds to you by passing the laws and policies you like. Low influence means you're ignored. Congress passes laws that have no relationship to what you want. Special interest groups also have sway over public policy. The researchers divided them into two types. Mass interest groups, which represent large groups of organized citizens, have a small amount of power. Business groups, like trade associations, have a moderate amount, likely because they can afford to spend more on lobbying and political donations. None of this means that all.
And I mainly paused that so that YouTube doesn't. Yes, thank you. Don't forget to stop it now and then. Basically, yeah, I don't doubt that that's all true, and I love that there's at least somebody who's trying to study it. None of this means that ordinary people never get what they want from Congress. In several instances, public opinion data matched up with things Congress actually did. But the vast majority were also outcomes favored by the wealthy and business. So basically, the wealthy and the business interests will do what we like as long as it is something they like as well. Right. Yeah.
Ordinary people never get what they want from Congress. In several instances, public opinion data matched up with things Congress actually did. But the vast majority were also outcomes favored by the wealthy and business interests. What about those other times? The sad fact is that the government doesn't care what 90% of Americans think. Okay, so that's bad. The wealthy get the laws they want. The final piece of the puzzle is to look at the pattern of influence we have and see what category that fits into. The authors defined 4 possible systems we might have: democracy, an oligarchy, interest groups generally, or business groups especially. The problem here isn't the existence of wealth, or that wealthy Americans have political opinions. It's that the government is representing only 10% of the American people.
All right, and I'm going to stop it so I'm not stopped, and also to ask, as Machi would ask, who has an opinion on what we've heard so far? We only get what we want when they also want it. Huzzah! I don't listen to animated characters. Fair enough. But if this is true, then the elections are a sham. They already know the winner. And that's something I suspect, actually. I think that's why there was so much panic when Trump won, because he wasn't supposed to win. He wasn't their hand-picked boy. And I think that's also why there's so much. Okay, I'm gonna finish the video. All right.
Everyone else is living with something less than democracy. This research wasn't really about what got us to an oligarchy, but the authors have some ideas. It is well established that organized groups regularly lobby and fraternize with public officials, move through revolving doors between public and private employment, provide self-serving information to officials, draft legislation, and spend a great deal of money on election campaigns. At its heart, this is a problem of corruption caused by money in our political system. Such corruption is fundamentally opposed to the ideals of our republic, because the public is likely to be a more certain guardian of its own interests than any feasible alternative. Other solutions can be found in certain democratic political reforms, including ranked choice voting and open primaries that serve to break the two-party duopoly stranglehold on our political system and give voters more choice and voice at the ballot box. Invest wisely. And as always, take care of.
All right. I have heard good things about ranked choice voting. Why should a cat in the hat be taken seriously? Oh, goodness. Okay. I'm going to play the song that had been so influential to me as a youth, and mainly because I think it explains very well what I've been thinking for a long time. I think ideas should stand or fall on their merit, not who you hear them from. Not wrong. And again, I'll have to stop it in the middle somewhere, but some of you may remember this song. I'm going to play this version. So, nostalgia for the golden age that may or may not have ever existed. I prefer hope for a better future, and that's not wrong. But I remember as a child, I listened to this, and I was very worried for our country back then. And it's not so much the nostalgia. I mean, although that's there too, but it's mainly it was mainly the fear that was very much alive then. I know some of you remember the 70s, and while it really feels like things are worse now, there was a lot of horrible crap going on then as well. There was the economy was terrible. America was not respected. We were completely deflated from the loss of the Vietnam War. Putin's cat in an anime. Sashi is saying a character was surprised that a cat was speaking to him. The cat answered, "How do you know I'm talking? I could be making sounds approximating speech, and you assume I talk." Hopefully, hopefully you have the patience for the rest of the song. Let me know if maybe you It's so much worse now than I never imagined that we would be where we're at without an army invading us and conquering us. But yet, and Matt, I think if you hated all the rest of the song, I bet you at least appreciated the hope and the spirit at the end. Forfeiture, and she binge watched a show. Bone, thank you very much for showing up. All the cats showed up today, and then we listened to some Russian music with the cat on there. Thank you very much for showing up, Thade, the great cephalopod himself. And I think. Me that it wasn't found to be very useful to listen to the Dr. Phil thing, but thank you very much, Matt. I hope I am making progress. I just have to take it a day at a time. I know I'm only going to do one stream next week of my own because next week is going to be hell. Work is like doing some crazy stuff, and I just got to buckle down and get it done. But Thade and I, hopefully, we're going to be talking about when we can do it. Hopefully next Friday. I don't know exactly. What do I do? Well, believe it or not, I sell booze. There's some great things about the job, but I'll be honest, it's not. I don't fit very well in that uh, occupation. I watched a vid earlier today of a guy who was struggling, reminding me of you. Oh, thank you very much. Well, we just, one of the things about my son having his difficulties is it no longer, I won't say it doesn't bother me, but I no longer allow it to stop me just to be embarrassed or to be laughed at or to make a mistake, because when you see your son on a gurney and fully expect you'll never, that he's gone and you're going to bury him, whatever you guys say to me with respect, nothing you can say to me will ever equal that. So yeah, I'm willing to make mistakes. Hopefully some of what I'm saying is resonating, and if not, hopefully we'll all guide each other to a better place. I haven't come up with a great, the karaoke. Putin's cat is asking. That's probably a good thing to end up with. I will send you the link to the karaoke. I won't be going there. Tired as heck, but several of the community, Jedi Bill and Fade and Lady V, sometimes deleted scenes, although I don't think I see them right now, but sometimes they'll do a karaoke thing, and every now and then I will go there too, but not tonight. You have to understand the phrase. You have to be willing to be bad and something to be good at it, and it's something that finally did. Karaoke. Well, the karaoke is going on right now. It started 3 hours ago. So yeah, I've been competing with that all this time. Y'all could have been listening to people doing karaoke instead of all this stuff. Just think about that. But I appreciate that you were here. I love what Netter says. You could have been doing anything, watching anything. You chose to be here. And that's very encouraging. And so I do hope that some of this is resonating, is in some way entertaining or informative. And I will catch y'all later. Karaoke, why? Because they're just that silly. And appreciate y'all. Have a good night. And hopefully we do stop rolling downhill like a snowball headed for hell. Good evening.